Hey everybody, welcome back. We are doing a little bit of a experiment today. We're going to be doing a little bit of a dissection. I'm not going to dissect an animal. I'm actually going to dissect a plant because today we're going to focus on our producers of those plants that you find all over in habitats and serve a really important role. We talked about how that they were food in a previous episode, but today we're going to talk a little bit about their role and what they actually do in their habitats and why they're put together the way they're put together, and that's why we're going to dissect one. So I have a good example of a few things here that are important and basic parts of a plant. Now, plants are our producers, so that means they're going to be making their own food, and the process that they use to make their own food is called photosynthesis. Fingers crossed, I hope you've heard of that word before. It's a really cool thing in biology and zoology that is a chemical process. It's actually chemistry happening inside of these plants where they turn carbon dioxide, water, into oxygen and sugar of all things. So they take the carbon dioxide that we exhale and they take a little bit of water that they've stored up and they do some chemistry inside their leaves and they change all of those elements around to make them into new elements. And one of the big things that they make is oxygen. I don't know about you, I'm a big fan of oxygen. I like breathing oxygen. I think it's a good thing. And plants are responsible for providing that for us. So that's our connection to plants, not just because some of them taste really yummy and they're awesome to have in a salad, but they produce something that I need to survive. So that's another link. You can see how living things are connected right there in that one cycle of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is going to happen in the leaves mostly. So you can see the leaves where they're nice and flat. They're going to be collecting light for that purpose. They're also going to be having a bottom part. Here's kind of a fun fact about leaves. In most plants, the leaves are going to collect or have their solar panel parts on the top, and there's little trap doors on the bottom of the leaf that let the oxygen out. So you'll see a process happen during the day on top and a process at night happen where they let those go. I think that's a really cool thing about leaves and plants in particular. Plants have a lot of parts where they are getting the things that they need to have photosynthesis happen in their leaves. If you guys want to come closer, you can check out the roots of our plant. And I'm going to pull out some of my dissecting tools here. I've got my forceps and I'm going to get my probe out by using my forceps. Okay. So the roots here are going to collect not just water, but also nutrients out of the soil. And you can see there's extensions here. I don't know if it's a little hard to see, but you can see that there's parts coming off this main root. This main root right here, we call a tap root because it's going to go straight down into the ground and tap into any water and nutrients that are available. The tap root kind of stops here, and the stem starts to grow. And the stem is where you have the leaves and the other parts of the plant coming off of it. So you can see these leaves here are coming off of offshoots of the stem, and eventually it's going to produce a flower up here. And the flower is where you're going to have other animals and organisms called pollinators come in and actually help reproduce the plant itself. Now, I told you that the plant is going to do photosynthesis in the leaves, and it's going to make all those sugars, and it's going to have a place to store those sugars. So a lot of the storage of the sugars and the water in a plant are going to happen in the stem into two little straws called xylem and phloem. Xylem takes the stuff up from the roots out to the leaves, and phloem brings it back in. So it's kind of a one-way cycle. So xylem goes out, phloem comes back in. And you see those little tubes sitting next to each other inside and organized in the stems of the plant. It's kind of cool. We're not going to be able to really see it here, but maybe if I do a little snip, we can see some of the water come out of that stem. Let's see if we can use this paper here to help us out. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's a little bit green. And that green liquid is what's going to be stored in that plant. So the xylem and phloem are going to help us out by getting the things in and out of from the roots up and into the plant. Cool thing about the flowers is they actually have some parts too. So we're going to see if we can get some flower parts for you to see. We've got the petals. The petals are there to attract those pollinators. See those petals come off? And then these little fuzzy things here are the parts of the plant that are going to make seeds. The top parts are part of the fuzzy ones are called stamens. And that holds half of the plant's DNA. And then at the very, very bottom here, I'm going to try really hard to get into it. Down here, this green part is going to be called a pistil. And inside the pistil, each one of these little pistils is where the seeds are made. So the pollen from the stamen is going to be delivered into the pistil, and then the DNA is going to combine and it's going to make a seed. And all of that happens right in this space here. What attracts those pollinators are the beautiful colors of the petals and the smell. A lot of flowers have a scent. So those pollinators are not only attracted to the colors, but they're also attracted to the scent that the plants give off. Pollinators are super important. That's how we get other plants. And anything can be a pollinator. I'm a pollinator when I walk through and hike around in nature. You can be a pollinator. A lot of animals are pollinators, like bees and flies. Dogs, when they traipse through, can be a pollinator. I took my cat out this weekend and he was a pollinator because he had a bunch of pollen stuck onto him when he was traipsing around. Wind can be a pollinator. A lot of things like birds and bats that eat fruits and nectar are going to be pollinators. So a lot of animals are used and a lot of things are used to push that pollen around so it can get into the flower and make other seeds. Leaves are really interesting, cool things. I really enjoy leaves a lot. And one of the things that we're going to use our nature journals for when we're looking at our plants is we're going to collect some leaves and do a leaf rubbing. Leaf rubbings are beautiful records of the types of plants that we're going to explore. So what we're going to do in your journal, and I'm actually going to do this on a piece of paper so we can see it a little bit easier, is take a piece of paper, you're going to fold it in half, and then inside the fold, you're going to put a leaf. I like to put the bumpy side up first because that's what we're going to be rubbing actually. And then you can put as many as you want. I might put some of this pollen. Then you fold the paper over and you kind of smush it, make a sandwich out of it. Crayons work best for this because they're easier. A pencil also works really great for this because of the soft lid. I would not use a pen. Don't use a pen. I would try and avoid a marker too because they might not necessarily work as easy. I haven't had good success with those. And then you take your crayon and then you just color. Over the leaf, and as you can see here, we've got that shape of the leaf coming. Oh, the grass moved. I don't know where my pollen went. There it is. See the little pollen there. So we have our grass frond and our leaf here. and our little bit of pollen. And it gives us a record of those plants that we saw. So if we were doing this in our journal, of course we put our date and where we were at, and then maybe a description of the plant, what it looked like, what color flowers it had, what the flowers looked like, maybe sketch those a little bit, and then you do your leaf rubbing and that gives you a record of those plants. So our producers, our plants, super cool, really important. The first level of a food chain, lots of things eat them, and they are serving a purpose, not just providing food, but they're also providing oxygen. So it's an important thing to have those plants around. Again, it's all about balance in a habitat. So we want to make sure that there's enough consumers eating those plants and the plants have enough room to do what they need to do. Go on a hike today, find some plants, see if you can get a really beautiful leaf that you find most enjoyable, that you find is beautiful in shape, has some good texture to it, and then do a leaf rubbing and put that in your journal and maybe share that with us. Happy hunting for your plants day, everybody. Thanks for joining.